It's a lot to go from drinking, having a puff with your friends at 13, 14 to injecting cocaine at 24. That's a fucking leap, man. It's a real leap.
Yeah.
And I think I got it. It just took hold, and drink took hold first, and then as many people say, the drink stopped working, and then I started looking for drugs, and I found a drug. It worked for a little while, then I wanted more, and then I just kept moving on. It's all about pathways and neural pathways, I think, and I like the kind of cognitive approaches to this. Actually, I think that there's a guy called Marlatt who wrote some excellent relapse prevention stuff, and that's all very based in practical strategies, actually. But I think the neuroscience suggests that we are dopamine seeking individuals.
This is Rock Bottom with Ryan. No sugarcoating, no filters. The pain, the chaos, the truth. No bullshit. Just recovery.
Hey everyone, just want to welcome you to another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan. Once again, this episode is brought to you by Sober Strong Apparel. Sober Strong Apparel isn't just lifestyle wear, it's battle gear. Heavyweight tees, hoodies, hats, gear for ones who draw a hard line. Clean, sober, no compromise. We rep sobriety like a badge of honor, and every piece you throw on says you're a part of the crew that doesn't back down. And 10% gets donated to treatment facilities. 10% of every purchase. And use code ROCKBOTTOM, all one word, capital letters, ROCKBOTTOM, for 15% off at SoberStrongApparel.com. That's SoberStrongApparel.com. Use code ROCKBOTTOM for 15% off. Love what this company stands for. The style is incredible. The quality is amazing. Check them out. A lot of great options. Thanks again. Enjoy this episode. All right, welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan. I'm here with Matthew today. Matthew, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Really excited to have you on here, and been looking forward to talking to you about recovery and your approach to sobriety and science-backed approaches to ditching alcohol. And before we get all into that, let's hear a little bit about do you have a sober date? If so, what is it? And then what was your drink or drug of choice, and where you're from? All the basics.
Basics. Okay. Yeah. So let's start with, the most important date for me, which is the 19th of January, 2014. So that was the last time I took a drink or a drug. So I've celebrated my last clean time birthday was 12 years. I was alcohol dependent. I was an alcoholic. I was also a cocaine user. I used cocaine in many different forms, all the way through from sniffing to smoking to injecting towards the end. So that was my story, really. I'm from the UK, as you can probably guess by my accent. Some people may like it, some people may not. I think
UK accents are really nice and peaceful to listen to.
Yeah, we do our best, right? So yeah, I'm from the UK, lived here, did my recovery here, got clean here. I've been very fortunate enough to travel the world, and I have experienced recovery in different countries as well. I haven't experienced it in America. That was one of my dreams, to go to downtown Bronx, somewhere like that, do recovery down there, have a look at what it's about down there. Or maybe Idaho, now that I've heard of Idaho. All I know
about a friend in Idaho.
All I know about Idaho is there's something to do with potatoes over there, right?
That's all anybody says when I say I'm in Idaho. They're just like, oh, potatoes. I'm like, well, I mean, I think if it's kind of dumb, but like potatoes make a lot of really cool stuff, like French fries and hash browns and all that stuff. So, I mean, it's not that bad.
It's a staple. And the way I know about Idaho potatoes is through all my younger years listening to Biggie. Biggie talks about Idaho potatoes.
Idaho potatoes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's the only way I know. Maybe showing another side of myself there.
I'm glad you know your 90s rap. I love 90s rap.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, underneath the shirt and jacket, I've got plenty of 90s rap tattoos. I've got a Wu-Tang one on my arm.
Oh my gosh. I was just talking about Wu-Tang yesterday. That's awesome.
Sadly, this was part of my using, actually, but I've got a Tupac tattoo across my stomach. It doesn't say Thug Life, though, for anyone who's listening.
I was about to say, if you have a Thug Life tattoo, I'm impressed.
It says Machiavelli instead, so that was
That's pretty cool. I got Tupac little doll behind me as we speak. So
yeah, in fact, I've got one. I've got a Tupac doll over there. I've got a Biggie one over there. I've got Tupac with a bandana on, a Johnny Cash one as well. Uh,
Sweet. All right.
yeah,
Well, this will be a fun interview. You're like all the people I like. So,
yeah, man,
um,
we're
yeah,
real,
no,
right?
I like, usually on Wednesdays, I rock Wu-Tang for Wu-Tang Wednesday is what I call it. But
Nice.
all I have is a Wu-Tang hoodie and it's too hot out today to wear it. So I spaced out on that, but
Well, just
I
for
totally get it.
yeah,
There you go. Wu-Tang's for the children.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
All right. We'll try to get back on topic, but we'll move back
Yes,
to rap later. Awesome though. Yeah, I'm covered in sleeves, so I totally get the tattoos when we were using. I get even more tattoos now that I'm sober too, so I don't understand.
yeah.
I say I'm more random getting tattoos sober for some reason. Like I think less about it now when I get tattoos, which is weird, but
I think
find that
I
interesting.
think there was a stage where I really thought about it, and then remembered how much my mother disliked them. So I've got a great relationship with my mum today, but just as a small few, there's
Yeah,
keep getting new ones, and even if I haven't got a new one, she thinks I've got a new one, so we just go with that.
exactly. I got so many that even when my mother sees me, she's like, "Oh yeah, I didn't even notice you had a new one because you've been covered for 20 years." I'm like, "Oh, okay." But yeah, so take me back to what was childhood like growing up in the UK? What was your family dynamic growing up? Your relationship with your parents, your siblings, all that stuff.
It's an interesting one. Growing up in the UK is very so I was growing up in the late 80s is really where I grew up. I don't have that story really where I wish I could say that I come from abject poverty and that kind of thing. That wasn't my story. My parent, there was a lot of dysfunction in my family system, an awful lot, and I don't think I realised that until I got a little bit older and trained as a therapist and started looking back on some of that stuff and really understanding what was going on. Like I didn't understand what was going on at the time, but I think I learned very, very early from watching my father, I guess, who was quite a heavy drinker. It's a bit classic. Like my dad kind of watching that change the way you feel and through alcohol. And I remember alcohol's the first thing, you know. So I have to admit that there was probably a correlation between watching my dad doing what he was doing and learning something. But I had a sister and my sister was only 3 years older than us. And actually she didn't go down the same path as me at all. I think, I don't know, man, as far as I remember back, I remember feeling a little bit out of place, not really understanding life that much. And actually, even now at 36, I've got an amazing career. I can still fall into that kind of place of like, what is all of this? What the fuck is this life thing? Like, I don't really understand what it's about. And I think I never gave myself a chance, you know, and the childhood I found difficult. And then the moment I found alcohol and substances at sort of like 13, 14, I was like, I was away. I was just away
Really? So
really quickly as well.
really. So do you think what was your first use like, and do you think you were trying to numb something
I think
at
so.
first?
I
What
think
was
so,
that?
yeah. I mean, I remember my first experience being drunk at a party. I remember this really vividly because I think it's really important. Like, I got drunk. Everybody does it, right? It's a rite of passage when you're growing up. You get pissed, you throw up, and you go, oh, I won't do that again. But I remember the night before, I got really drunk. I threw up, and then I remember pouring vodka in my tea in the morning. And I think I meant it as like a bit of a stunt to try and make myself look cool in front of people. But actually, there's something in that looking back on it, you know, and thinking about where I ended up. And
It's alcoholism right off the bat.
yeah, it just drinking like an alcoholic straight from the get go, you know. And I don't know, like there's loads of different theories I subscribe to around addiction and recovery and stuff. But one of the ones that I think holds a lot of weight is that self-harm one, you know. And when I was younger, I kind of danced with self-harm a little bit. Nothing really
Extreme.
that you would call self-harm. But I think when I found drugs and alcohol, it really started to kind of, it's like a slow suicide kind of thing, isn't it? And I think that really speaks to me, that theory. And I think that's what it was from a young age. I was so unhappy and confused. I just found drugs and drink, and I was just like, I'm away. This is it. And I kind of wanted to be this rock star. It was like a kind of idealizing like your Kurt Cobains and your Jimi Hendrixes and people like that. And I think I wanted to go out like them, you know, and I wanted to live a life like them and I think
Same.
actually it speaks to the part of me that just didn't have a clue who I was.
Did growing up and listening to hip hop influence you a little bit? Because I know it influenced me a little bit, listening to rap and about blunts and drinking 40s
Yeah,
and stuff. And I was drinking 40s and smoking blunts soon after that. So I don't
you were
know if that
obviously a bit
inspired you.
you're a bit cooler. You're a bit cooler than me, then, man. I always listened to hip hop, and I remember the first CD I ever bought was the Marshall Mathers LP, actually. And I remember
Good
taking
album.
it home and putting it on, and my mum being like, "I'm not sure about that. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
that
about
was a
that."
questionable album.
Yeah, for
I
many
don't think
reasons.
any parents were happy about that one.
Nah, they weren't. But I guess when you think about musical influence, music's always been really important to me. So yeah, of course, it must have been there. Like, even if it wasn't
Yeah.
consciously like, oh, I want to be like Biggie, and because actually the drugs I ended up using and the way I was living my life was because rappers talk a lot about selling drugs, don't they? And I used to
Yeah.
idealize that and really want to be this like big time. Like, there was a rapper called Shine. Do you remember Shine?
Shine Poe. Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
P.
used
Diddy
he
managed him and he did 10 years in the penitentiary. And
I
yeah,
actually had his album on today
that
again.
was a good
Don't
album.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a great album.
The Life
But I
is one of
think,
my favorite songs. The Life.
yeah,
It's
I
a
like What You Gonna Do
commission.
and The
What you gonna
Commission.
do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and The
Yeah.
Commission. I like More or Less as well, which was on his second album,
Yep.
the one he recorded, released when he was in jail. But I used to look up to them because I wanted to be like well, it makes me cringe a bit like a gangster. But I was using drugs on the other side of what they were talking about. They're talking about selling them. I was wanting to smoke them, and I was wanting to sniff them, and I was that guy actually. So it was a bit of a dichotomy, really.
Yeah. I totally get it. So like, how did it? So you said like at an early age you were waking up having a sip, spiking your tea and stuff like that. I mean, I remember when I was in college, that was my first experience drinking in the morning. I'd wake up after a party and I'd be like the one to crack open a beer and be like, yeah, I'm just hairing the dog that bit me is what they called it. And, just to feel kind of tipsy again, and like cure the hangover. But then not realizing like 10 years down the road, I'd be doing that every morning, because I was dependent on it, But so how did like that starting to do that progress into like everyday drinking after a while, or was it everyday drug use, or both, or how was that going?
It was drinking was always present for me. I mean, I think I was alcohol dependent at 16, I think. So the legal age in the UK is obviously 18, but I was alcohol dependent at 16. And I mean, I was carrying bottles of whiskey. If you talk about Wu-Tang Wednesdays, me and my good friend who sadly passed away from addiction, we used to have something called Whiskey Wednesdays where we'd just buy, and this was when we were still at school, getting absolutely obliterated on a Wednesday night. It was already present. And I think, that one of the turning points for me was that drink was taking a real grip of me about 15, 16. And a lot of my friends started kind of going off in different directions. They were doing like moving on after school, and they were thinking about the future and thinking about uni, and I had none of that. And it's not because I wasn't kind of pushed that way by my family. It was more like I just felt really hopeless. It just felt really hopeless, and they were kind of off, kind of planning their lives and holding it down, having a drink on the weekend and partying, and I had a whole week, and I was unemployed. I wasn't doing anything. And I just think it just descended into real chaos really quickly. I think I got clean when I was 24. I think starting using at 14, 13, it all happened in 10 years. So you think about the speed of which you go through those things. It's a lot to go from drinking, having a puff with your friends at 13, 14 to injecting cocaine at 24. That's a fucking leap, man. It's a real leap.
Yeah.
And I think I got it. It just took hold, and drink took hold first, and then as many people say, the drink stopped working, and then I started looking for drugs, and I found a drug. It worked for a little while, then I wanted more, then I wanted more, and then I just kept moving on. Like every drug I ever found, I fucking loved it. I loved it because it did that thing that I wanted it to do, which was probably shut my head up, dull the pain, make me feel like my life was going somewhere, even if it wasn't.
What was your family's and friends' reactions to like watching you go down this route? I'm sure the friends you were using with didn't call you out, but like were other people in your life starting to notice or try to intervene?
A lot of my friends, I had a really good friend, and I'd still consider him one of my closest friends, a guy called Jack, and he wasn't into drugs at all, and he used to try. He really tried. But I think I don't know if this is your experience, but when you're hell-bent on destruction, the people around you can try and get in your way, and they can try and help. My mother, bless her heart, she tried and tried and tried and tried with me, but it was just, I was just too far gone at that point. Like, I was just destined to go where I was going. So I think that's people just had to kind of stand on the sidelines and watch.
Yeah.
And I really hope I never have to do that because I've got a child now, and I really hope I never have to watch her go through that. But I have, since being in recovery, watched people going through that, and it's just you just feel so fucking powerless, man. Like, you can't do anything. And I think that's where I
Besides,
was.
besides like some of the initial self-harm as far as using without limits and stuff, that which is self-harm, like what was one of your first like wake-up calls where you should have been like, okay, maybe I have a problem here?
I mean, I had an alcohol withdrawal seizure when I was about 16. I think I was 16, 17. I had a seizure because I hadn't drank and I didn't understand. I was actually in Hong Kong, and I was just I was on the way between. I don't know if you've been to Hong Kong. I was on the way between two islands, and I had a seizure. And I realized it was withdrawals, and I thought, shit, this has got hold of me here.
Yeah.
You know, and I was taking prescription medication at the time as well, like all sorts of just cocktail of random stuff. And I realized when that was the first experience I had a seizure, and I thought, shit. And I remember engaging with a local drug service and trying to get into that kind of stuff in the UK. My feet took me there, but I remember scoring on the way out, like, or I'd manufacture some reason to get myself out of there so I could go and score on the way home and manipulate my mother into doing it or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I hear about it a lot when people say, I really tried to get clean. I really tried to get clean. I didn't. I wasn't one of those addicts or alcoholics that tried to get clean in that 10 years that I was using and doing that. I was just accepting of my fate. That's where I was. I didn't try and do this meeting and really try at this and fail here. I just never did. I didn't want to, I don't think, in hindsight.
Yeah, no, I get it. So as that progressed, because you've been sober about 12 years, so like, did you get arrested at any moment? Were you hospitalized for seizures at any moment? Like, how
Yeah, I
did that?
was. Yeah, I got arrested many times for some ridiculous things. DUIs, strange, violent stuff that's just completely out of my character. Anyone that knows me, I'm as gentle as anything. But yeah, I've got a rap sheet that isn't great to look at sometimes. And hospital, yeah. I mean, towards the end of my using, when I kind of fast forward 5 or 6, 7 years from the point of my first seizure, my mum was sat in hospital with me, and I had 7 or 8 seizures in a row. And the doctor actually came to my mum and said, there's a good chance he's going to have a stroke and he's not going to come out of this, you know? So to think about where I was to get to that in such a short space of time, I mean, I was hammering everything I was taking. And
How
that's,
many drinks per day do you think you were having, and how much drugs do you think you were using on a
well,
bad day?
at the end, I was drinking between 10 and 12 litres of strong cider a day. And I was putting away, when I was, depending on what I had around me and how I was getting it, probably the best part of £1,000 worth of cocaine a week. So that's where the criminality, I did end up selling drugs, actually. Later date, I was a terrible drug dealer. Like, I was terrible. Like,
Getting high on your own supply, as
pretty much. Yeah. Let's
Biggie
keep
would
the
say.
Biggie theme
Yeah.
going. Yeah. Let's keep the theme.
Yeah.
It wasn't even that. Like, it just like to say I was selling drugs is actually just a bit embarrassing to say because like it was never cool and I was never really good at it. But that's where it ended me, man. Like, and to think that that wasn't that long ago. Like 12 years isn't that long, really. It is, but it isn't. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know. I'm sober 19 months, and like when I first got sober, I thought 19 months sounded like an eternity, let alone 12 years, you know. But now that I've hit 19 months, I'm like, well, I still don't feel like I know shit, you know. Like I feel proud of myself, but I'm like maybe 30 years down the road. But then I talk to somebody with 30 years and they're like, I still have to go to meetings every day. I still have to put in the work. So I mean, it's all relative.
And that's the thing, man. Like, I did a degree in addiction counseling. I've done a master's degree. I've done all of those things, and I still sit in front of clients today, and I still sit in front of other addicts and go, I know nothing about this stuff. I know, like, what do they say? What kept you clean yesterday won't keep you clean today. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of,
Exactly.
all that stuff. And I'm glad you mentioned meetings there because that was something that was really, really pivotal for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
We'll get
never,
into that too.
yeah, of course.
Well, I just, so as you progressed into your addiction, like me, like I talk to a lot of addicts and former alcoholics and hear a lot about some people that didn't go through withdrawals. I went through withdrawals early on. I was going through withdrawals at a young age too, and I didn't understand it. I thought I was just having panic attacks or something, or I would go to the doctor and be like, "I have anxiety, like give me some benzodiazepines or something." And they'd always ask me like, "How much have you been drinking?" And I would always bullshit, I'd always be like, "Oh yeah, I had like 5 or 6 on a weekend or something," when I would have like 15 to 20 per night, and I would always sugarcoat it, but I didn't realize till later in life those withdrawals were real and they're dangerous. And like the only way to get out of them is to be in a hospital or drink your way through it, basically, with that, because they're frightening. So when you mention withdrawals at 16, it's frightening. So as it progressed, like into like, say, what led up to like, multiple arrests, multiple hospital visits, things like that. But like, what led into you deciding I want to quit?
It sounds a bit token and a bit cliche, but I don't know how much longer I would have survived doing what I was doing. Even those 7 seizures that I had in a row that I was talking about earlier, I remember that, ironically, they discharged me from hospital with a load of benzodiazepines because I think they were still trying to get me to detox off the alcohol or for whatever reason. And I remember my mum begging them to keep me in, and I scored on the way home, picked up alcohol on the way home, ate all of these benzodiazepines and just went again. Do you know what I mean? That wasn't enough. And that's the scary thing about addiction, isn't it? You can come face to face with so many consequences, but it just doesn't stop. Like, it couldn't stop. And then I remember it wasn't me that wanted to get clean. Again, that theme went through. Like my mum, I remember sticking a phone to this amazing woman who was running a treatment center. She stuck the phone in my face on a Saturday morning and said, "Speak to this lady." And obviously I was like, "I don't fucking need to speak to anyone. I don't know, I haven't got a property, all right." But actually, I remember speaking to this woman, and I can't remember it, but I know that something in me went, "You need to do this."
Yeah.
It must have. It must have. Like, I can't sit here and say it was this angel coming down, and I remember that I needed to do it. That wasn't my story, but I remember this lady, and she was incredible, and she was so helpful to me in early recovery, and she really kind of opened the door to what recovery was, because I'd never been exposed to it. I'd never been exposed to NA or AA or the meetings or anything like that over the years. Like, I just didn't do any recovery. So I went into this kind of blind, but that was the moment I must have thought, I guess, okay, let's have a go.
Okay. And had you ever had any like small periods of sobriety before that?
Nah, I've never
Nothing
been
close.
in that time. I've never been sober.
And then what led to like the was the eye like shooting up cocaine? Was that just towards the end?
Yeah, it was towards the end. I wasn't like, be honest, I wasn't doing that for like 5-10 years. It was something towards the end. It's the progression, isn't it? Like, the sniffing didn't work, the smoking didn't work, and then when I moved from sniffing cocaine to smoking crack and injecting crack, the people you're using those drugs with change as well. So if I'd
Yeah,
just carried on sniffing cocaine, I probably never would have been around anyone who had needles or pipes or anything like that. So I
so
moved
true.
away from them, and it just got darker and darker and darker, and ended up in crack houses and trap houses, and that's what people are doing in there. So you think, well, fuck it, I'm here.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. I knew that the more harder the drugs evolved, the different my crowd would be, and I'd start to lose touch with people I used to do coke with, and I'd feel like, wow, I'm a piece of crap to them now too. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's crazy.
whilst we lose contact with ourselves, Ryan, as well, and that's the saddest part. Like, my mum was living in a cottage at the time, beautiful little cottage in the countryside in outside London, and I was in high rises smoking crack and doing all this madness, and really, I didn't belong there. Like, could have been at home in my mum's cottage in outside London, but for some reason I was gravitating towards these high rise flats and smoking crack in them. It's just insane.
Yeah. No, it's crazy how we end up there. Like there's a story. I'm kind of doing this storyline thing on my social media now about different stories and crazy dangerous situations I put myself in. And one of them that I haven't told yet that I'm going to get into for my listeners out there is me ending up in a crack house for 5 days in San Francisco when I was supposed to be over there visiting friends. And I ended up going out one night and landing in a crack house and just doing drugs for 5 straight days. And I witnessed everything from prostitution to this and that. So I'll be telling that story shortly on
Yeah.
my on my social media, but it's crazy the situations we put ourselves in. Like looking back at it now, and I'm like, wow, I actually was just sitting there witnessing all of that and just smoking the pipe and thinking I was totally normal.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's
but
the mad thing, isn't it? That we think we're like it's everyone else that's not normal. We're
yeah,
what we're doing is really normal, like the prostitution
yeah,
and the chaos and the blood and the blah blah blah. Blah.
yeah, the insanity of it. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah. That's the word.
So, like, what were the first looking back, like what were the first initial days of recovery like? Did you suffer through more withdrawals? Did you have like it medically supervised? How'd that go?
Yeah, man. It was like I'm sorry for your listeners, but I've got to be honest. Like my first month or so, I didn't experience this amazing pink thing that everybody talks about where that just wasn't my experience. I detoxed for a long time because I was taking a lot of benzodiazepines. I was drinking a hell of a lot. So when I went in there, I had to do a really long detox, and it was fucking more like everything was just morbid. It just felt really dark. You know that thing they say.
I couldn't even hold a straw up to my mouth. I had to have doctors do it. That's how
Like,
bad
I
it was.
remember walking around like this, just
Yeah.
walking around like that, and thinking to myself, "Am I putting this on, or is this real?" Like, and it really was because, like I said, I hadn't had any periods of sobriety or clean time, so
Yeah.
I hadn't experienced the withdrawals like that for a prolonged period of time. Because what I'd usually do is start withdrawing and stick something
Start
in me.
using.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
It's
So it wasn't.
frightening.
It was horrible. It was
Yeah. Did you have
horrible.
hallucinations or anything?
Yeah, I had hallucinations. My mum's got a great story about me and squirrels when I was in the hospital,
Wow.
where I was hallucinating. There was squirrels under the bed, and all these celebrities were coming in. But so yeah, I've experienced that psychosis. I experienced as well towards the end. But recovery, when I there is a moment, and I do remember this moment vividly when the fog started to clear a little bit, and I was in this, with respect to the people who ran the treatment centre, this grotty treatment centre in West London. And I remember one morning when I'd finished my detox and I was slowly thawing out a little bit. I remember opening the curtains to this not very pleasant garden that they had in the back. But just this moment overcame me of like emotion, I think it probably was, pain, sadness, grief, sorrow, all of them things. And I remember, and I cried for the first time in I don't know how long, and I remember thinking, I don't want to use anymore. I don't want this anymore. And it was one of
Yeah.
those moments, Ryan, where I can remember it. And I'm not that great with feelings and emotions still, but I can feel it when I talk about this time. I remember thinking in that moment, I remember this vividly thinking, I'm going to give this everything I've got. Have to, because I don't want this anymore. I don't want to do
Yeah.
this again. I don't want to
Yeah.
go through these rattles again. I don't want to live that life I was living anymore. I just don't want it.
It's a
And that
matter
was
of
the
life and
moment.
death too, you know?
Yeah, of course. And it is, and I think it gets bandied around a little bit in recovery, the life and death thing, but I think it really was.
Yeah. As a black cat walks by in the background when we talk about life and
Yeah. It's
death.
historical, eh? Like,
I know, but wow. So yeah, I'm sure those initial days were a struggle. They were for me too. Like I didn't have a pink cloud effect the first 10 days. I think were the worst 10 days ever. Like I admitted myself into inpatient rehab, and I was trying to figure out every way, shape, and form to escape. I was trying to practically figure out in my head ways to like smuggle something in, and finally after like day 10 I started to like be like give into it a little bit, but like those first 9 days it was hell to me, and then finally like 2 weeks after that I was embracing it, but like I was not perfect at first or feeling like life changed and dedicated to it at first either. So when did it start to get easier for you?
I don't want to sound negative, but first 30, 60, 90 days, there's slowly progresses, doesn't it? And then I think probably at about the 6 month mark, I started to really feel like recovery was something that I might be able to really get on board with. So it was a 12-step treatment center I went to, and we had to do meetings, and it was sort of, I think it was 7 meetings a week we had to do. And of course, like that's a lot. That was a lot of meetings for me back then because I had so much going on in my life. I thought, well, am I going to make time for all of these meetings? But actually, I just kept going to them, and I heard something in those rooms that further made me want to follow recovery as the path for me and my future. So I
Yeah.
guess about 6 months, I really started getting a grasp of what recovery was maybe about, what I needed to do, what I couldn't do,
And you
what was
said
off.
meetings played a role in that too?
Yeah, man, like I'm I'm an advocate of the 12 steps. I've done a lot of training in my recovery
Same here.
and training to become a psychotherapist and all that, but there's not a person I work with in addiction that I don't suggest goes to meetings.
Okay. Well, tell me, let's get into like your career and like how a sober life started and all that. When did you get into that and how did it start? What inspired you? How did all that work?
Well, it's an interesting story actually. So I trained as a counselor when I was 2 years clean, 2.5 years clean. So I did a 3-year degree. And I set up a private practice. Pretty much when I finished, my good friend Neil, who is in recovery as well. He's a few years ahead of me. I think he's 15 years now. He kind of he put his arm around me and really supported me. So I set up my private practice because he was a little bit further ahead in his education than I was. And we were working together in a luxury private UK treatment centre, which just no longer exists, but actually it gave me a great foundation for my career.
Awesome.
So I did my degree, and sober life came about within the last year actually. But up to that, I'd been establishing myself as a therapist. So after I finished my master's degree, I did a 4-year master's in psychotherapy, and then I began working in London. So my business partners who co-own Sober Life with me, are also people that are in recovery. So I met them through recovery, and we wanted to do something that speaks to the environments that we're working in, and I think as I've progressed through my career and started working with different types of people, you see that addiction is prevalent at every level. I started in charity sector where we're scraping people off the streets with heroin addictions and crack addictions, and I loved that work. I worked in that for years, and I think that's incredible work as well. But then you go into the city, which is where I'm based now, so I've got practices in London, 3 or 4 different practices in London, and addiction is still rife in those areas, but the recovery feels a little bit different. And actually, the reason we started Sober Life is because we feel like there's a bit in the market that's missing people that you might consider your executives, your CEOs, your people like that who can't necessarily do classical recovery or feel they can't do classical recovery. So we're trying to offer something a little bit different, and that's bringing together the neuroscience that we spoke about at the beginning, bringing together a lot of the psychotherapy that I've learned over the years and a lot of the training that I've done over the years to really get behind some evidence-based practices. But at the same time, at my heart, I'm a drug addict in recovery, so I can't deny things like the 12 steps. And look, we could debate the evidence and the science around the 12-step fellowships all we want, but for me, as a recovering addict and as a psychotherapist, I really believe in the 12 steps. I believe they work for people, but I do think that there's other things out there that work for people as well. And I think that what Sober Life does is blends my career over the last decade and Alex's, who we spoke about earlier, his career, and we just kind of blend those things together, and we're trying to kind of bring recovery into corporate settings, because actually some of the corporate settings that I've seen are like fucking drug parties, man. Alcohol,
Yeah,
cocaine,
very
ketamine.
prevalent.
These things are so accepted in those environments, and actually that it doesn't have to be like that. Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be
so
like that.
true. I agree. So, what is like a no shame approach to quitting alcohol actually look like in practice? Like, what's that about? That's something that Alex mentioned to me.
Yeah, interesting. So no shame approach. Like, I don't know about you, man. Like, and I still battle with this today, being honest, is that one of the things that runs through me as a addict, and I do refer to myself as an addict, but is that I'm riddled with shame, man. Like, I did a lot of shit things. I hurt a lot of people and I harmed a lot of people. And I've been through the 12 steps 4 or 5 times, and I still hold bits of shame, And I think that some of the classical approaches to addiction treatment can be quite shame-based. And this is an interesting debate, and maybe this isn't the space to do it, but there's some argument that the labels addict and alcoholic are held with some level of shame. And I think some of the people that I've worked with that are kind of more high-end jobs and they earn lots of money, they don't want to be called an addict and an alcoholic. So we kind of leave labeling and pathologizing out of our work. We make it very client-centered in the sense that we don't kind of we don't tell you how bad of a person you are in order to help you recover. It's kind of building you up and maybe doing a bit more like sort of compassion-focused interventions and things like that, amalgamating the neuroscience stuff as well.
Okay. All right. So, like, can you tell me, based on what you've learned over the years you've been doing this, like, what's happening in the brain when somebody's craving alcohol? That's something I've been wondering.
Yeah, well, it's a really, really interesting debate, and it's all about pathways and neural pathways, I think. And I like the kind of cognitive approaches to this, actually. I think that there's a guy called Marlatt who wrote some excellent relapse prevention stuff, and that's all it's very based in practical strategies, actually. But I think the neuroscience suggests that we are dopamine seeking individuals, and like, I think humans are actually quite dopamine seeking. I don't know where mine is, but if you there it is. If you think about this thing is an absolute dopamine trap for all of us, and I think let's use the labels for a moment. Addicted people, addicts, alcoholics, whatever you want to call them, have it in excess. So we've got to learn to kind of really calm that part of the brain down. And my friend, he really swears by the addiction in the brain model and how it's about trying to create new neural pathways in the brain. And I think psychotherapy can do that.
Yeah.
I believe the 12-step process can do that as well. I think that there's so many things that can work in conjunction with each other, but I think to deny neuroscience in 2026 is to deny we're human, right? And I know AI is coming to take us all over, but let's not deny we're human just yet. Like, I think we can still do that. And I think the other evidence-based stuff that I do is a lot of the psychotherapy stuff, and I think psychotherapy is getting a really, really good evidence base now. I think people are starting to really
Has it helped you kind of understand your own addictions quite a bit as you're learning to teach other people?
Yeah, I mean, I liked learning about the disease concept of addiction, actually. That really worked for me when I was early doors, but I think being able to build on the disease model of addiction and integrate psychotherapy and developmental theories and neuroscience and continue, I think it's really built a good picture of what my addiction was to me and what it is to me now.
What are some other, like, evidence-based strategies people can use to reduce or quit drinking? You said psychotherapy being one of them. What are
I
some
think
other things?
psychotherapy, it's really hard. And you might have come across this, right? Like, people ask me that question directly. They're like, so what can I do? And I think the more simple strategies are actually the most useful ones. I think sometimes we try and reinvent the wheel with addiction recovery and try and make it something that's a lot prettier than it is. But I don't know about you, but how many times have you had your ass saved by picking the phone up and calling somebody?
Quite a few, yeah.
Yeah, me too. And like, all going, oh, I've done this thing. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done it. Like, and you talk about neuroscience, and that does help to create new pathways in the brain, because you learn in those moments that in that moment when I want to use, I don't have to. I can pick the phone up and call Ryan and go, Ryan, like, I'm about to score crack, or I'm about to go into a crack house with some working girl, or whatever. Like that is telling your brain, that is learning for us, isn't it? So that
Yeah.
would, for me, that would fall under the guise of a neuroscience intervention. It doesn't sound very sciencey, but that is one of the things, right? I think therapy, 12 steps. I do like some of the exercise and the healthy living stuff. I think integrating that is really, really useful. But I do not think that I've ever found anything in my career that combats addiction quite like human connection.
Oh, okay. Human connection. I love that answer. That's awesome. It does make a huge difference. I mean, if it wasn't for, like, going to meetings is one thing for me, just to, like, have something productive to do 1 hour per day, every day of the week, because I'm very committed to those meetings. But it's the relationships and community that I've built along with those meetings, and the time I spend with people, how I keep in touch, being in group chats with people, social media, through doing this podcast, and just, like, the friendships and relationships I've built are the things that I think are motivating me to stay sober, and
100%. And
it's never,
like,
yeah,
it's less easy to measure, Ryan. The having a life that has meaning and purpose. But what do they build a life you don't want to lose? And I have that today, I have a life. I will do whatever it takes to keep hold of my recovery, because without it, I'm sure the same's for you. I'm guessing you weren't considering doing a podcast when you were in that crack house for 5 days, like the
exactly.
things that we do when we get clean, man, they're beautiful.
I know. Yeah. We get motivated. We start to feel more positive about life. We want to spread the word and what we're learning, and it's definitely helping. Like I say, if this podcast helps one person out there, and one person resonates with it, I feel like it's a success. And I'm sure what you're doing with your private practice and everything you're doing, I'm sure that you're getting so much satisfaction knowing it's helping people. So how could couple of random questions associated with what you do. Like, how can someone rebuild their identity without alcohol?
I think it takes time.
Yeah.
I do, but like to identify, I'll use myself as an example. Like when I got sober, I didn't have a clue who I was. So I think for some of the people that I work with and some of the clientele that I work with, actually, they've got they've got a ready-made identity to step back into. For me, I had to rebuild from the bottom because I didn't have anything. I was a drug addict. I was a crack smoker. I was a whatever you want to call it. I didn't really have a benchmark, but a lot of the people that I see are already really set in their careers. But it's learning to be in that career in a different way. So previously it would be showing up to meetings or the boardroom and you'd have some packet or you'd have a drink and that would be who you were. You were the life and soul. But actually, I think over time you have to learn that you don't need to be that person all the time. And I think part of being in recovery is learning what being in recovery means, right? And who I am in recovery. And I think that comes over time. But I think to rebuild the identity, a part of that is to identify as somebody who is in recovery and be proud of that and speak about that and behave like that because people will pick up on it. People pick
Yeah.
up on change, don't they?
No, that's a great answer. No, I totally agree. We do pick up on change, and it's one of the things I had to realize over time over the last 19 months how much my brain is changing, and how I do have to be compassionate with myself and patient with myself in a lot of ways because I'm still have a lot of those character defects from 2 years ago. So I mean, it's
And that's
so
the don't expect
yeah.
perfection of ourselves, right?
Exactly. And that was like another one of my questions. I'm hitting you with some tough ones here. What does progress actually look like if it's not perfection? I always love talking about progress and perfection, and it's hard sometimes. Like it's easier said than done sometimes because I am a perfectionist, with OCD. So it's one of those things.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I heard it's a bit cringy, it's a little bit Instagrammy, but I'm going to say it anyway. I heard somebody say once to not expect perfection if you can't give it yourself, and it
Yeah.
was a facetious statement, meaning none of us can give that, right? And I think, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a dad today. I got since being in recovery, I've had a daughter, and she's just my everything.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you,
awesome.
man. She's 8, so she's never seen me use as well, which is just
Beautiful.
fucking
Yeah.
magical, man. Excuse my language,
Yeah.
but it's just
No, that's
magical.
great.
It's just beautiful. And I think I apply the same mantra to recovery that I do to be a dad. Like I make mistakes. I don't get it right all the time. If I look back on my recovery, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've got it wrong. I've treated people in ways I wish I hadn't. I've made mistakes. I've blah, blah, blah. You know, the human stuff. But I just try and be a little bit better than I was last time, like yesterday and the day
Yeah.
before. And if I make a mistake as a parent one day, I try and make it right the next day. It's really living for me. It's living the stuff I've learned over the years. So it's living my 12-step program. It's living the stuff I've learned in therapy. It's living the stuff that I've learned that's science backed. It's living the stuff that I've learned from people. Instead of just kind of breezing through life and not really giving a shit of how I impact people, I take stock every day and I just try and be a little bit better. And I try not to shame myself and give myself a hard time because, like, you know as well as I do, Ryan, if I'm hard enough on myself, I'll end up back in the crack house. I don't fucking
Exactly.
want that.
Got to give ourselves grace.
Yeah, man. Like it's easier said than done, but I think again that's where connection comes into it because I need people around me to go, Matty, stop. It's all right. It's okay. Just you got it wrong. Put it right. Don't do it again. Let's learn from it.
Yeah. So that's a great answer. So I'm so interested in like what you do. Like, so how is like the conversation around alcohol changing with like newer research? Once you're talking about science based, I'm just curious of like how it's changed, how the perspective has changed around it, because it used to just be so frowned upon. What's your opinion on that?
I think that the narrative's changing. I mean, there's some mixed research coming out about Gen Z and the current generation and their attitude with drinking. I think I'm not always sold on the abstract research that's given on alcohol, because a lot of the research comes out is either scaremongering, fearmongering, or just categorically untrue. So I think the science is where it's at. I think that we're moving in the right direction. It wasn't that long ago, Ryan, that we were talking about telling pregnant women to have a glass of red wine with their with their children and stuff. And I
Yeah.
think that's crazy when you
Yeah.
think about that. Like, so what do I think about where the science is going? I think that we're moving in the right direction, but I don't know as much as about the American culture and drinking, but I think it's pretty big. I don't know whether we're going to change it completely. And I think as long as, especially in the UK, we have things, I'm not trying to get political, but as long as we have taxation on things like alcohol, and I can't see it changing that much. But I think that the statistics coming out of the NHS and people talking about it more is definitely making people think about their drinking more. Is it changing? I guess we'll see in 5 to 10 years' time. That's I always think it's a test of time thing.
Yeah. Well, that's a great answer. I appreciate it. So I guess thinking about the bigger picture, like what would you say to someone right now who's curious about quitting alcohol, but like not fully ready?
I think you need to get into conversation with the right people. You know, there's who's winning. And I think that I haven't met many people in recovery. In fact, I've never met anyone in recovery that's gone, you know what?
I'm
Actually, I
miserable.
wish I was using. And I always say this, and I say it facetiously, and it's not that funny, but people, when people come back from a relapse to me and they come into the therapy room and they go, I don't often hear people coming back in going, you know what, Matt, great out there. You should have a go out there. Like, brilliant out there. And I think that recovery's got so many gifts, and a lot of the people I work with are already so blessed with so many gifts. They've got money, they've got houses, they've got beautiful children and stuff. But it's not about that stuff. What do we talk about? Money, prestige, and all of those things diverting us from our primary principles, right? The beauty that I've been able to see, the fact I'm present, the fact that I can show up in the right way for people, the fact that I can feel my feelings today when I want to, the fact that I can pay it back to my family for the things that I've taken from them over the years. Those feelings are worth more than any paycheck that I've ever had. You know, my mother's celebrating her 70th birthday this week, and I am going to be present for my mum's birthday, taking her out for dinner, and just being there. And actually, I was present enough to ask her the other day, how are you feeling about turning 70, mum? You know, like before it would have
So
been, can I have
rewarding.
70 quid, please, mum? Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like how much the
Things
times
have
have changed. And
changed.
it's those moments. And you've got to believe that, and you've got to look wider than what you might think recovery is, and really see what the beautiful gifts are that are available for people. Because I've seen some incredible things.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. No, it's so great. It's so rewarding to be able to be present for your mother or your daughter, everybody you care about in your life. Just thinking about where you were 13 years ago, it's like, wow, I'm there. I'm present. They're grateful, and it's like you're doing it every day. So what is a couple closing questions? What's a day in the life of Matthew right now? Like what's the day in the life like compared to back in the day?
Damn busy, man.
Yeah.
It's 10 p.m. at night here, so doing podcasts at 10 p.m. with your beautiful self, Ryan.
I'm grateful, man. I'm so
Yeah,
grateful.
no, I no, the gratitude's all mine, man. Honestly, it means the world to me being on here. The day for me, it looks like I'm quite a busy guy. Like, you might describe me as somebody who's perhaps at times addicted to work or working too hard. But since the inception of Sober Life, we have been really, really pushing it. It's been long days. I have my private practice, so the last few days I've been in London working in private practice. I'm a dad. I have my daughter. Well, I've had my daughter the last couple of nights as well. I come home and do normal dad things like cook macaroni cheese and watch the football. I'm quite a normal guy, man. I don't need a lot. I'm a bit of a I like to read. I like to go for a
Homebody.
walk.
Yeah.
I like to spend time with my daughter. I like to spend time with my family and my friends. Like, I keep my life simple, man.
I
I
mean,
just
you,
keep
you
it
talk
really
about it
simple.
like it's very nonchalant, but like you feel very rewarded and proud about it, which I agree with. But just look back, you and I were both in trap houses, back in the day. Like it's a huge change, and it's, compared to what we were doing, the simple life and the rewarding life is where we need to be. So it's great.
100%. And I wouldn't change it for the world, man. Like, people can call me boring all you want. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that, because if you living the life that I'd lived back then, you'd understand why boredom and peace and simplicity is fucking fine now. I'll take that all day.
Exactly. Well, it's such a big change, And what's one of the biggest challenges you've overcome in the last 12 years of sobriety?
The relationship with myself,
Okay.
being honest. I think it's still a daily battle. I think you said earlier, is it progress, not perfection, isn't it? And I think the 12 years have shown me loads of progress. I've achieved some amazing things. I'm so proud of what I've achieved. But there's still a part of me that I really need to keep an eye on that doesn't sabotage it and pull it all down. And because I think, I don't know whether this will ever go away completely, and it's a lot quieter than it used to be, but I think there's still a part of me that doesn't really like myself very much.
Yeah. I can feel that myself as well. So no
Yeah.
matter how much progress we make and how far we get into our recoveries and how much we accomplish, we're still very critical of ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that's where the relationship with myself gets better. Some days I'm content, I'm peaceful, and everything's great. Other days, less so. But they're small. There's big wins, and like I say, I wouldn't change anything, man. I think but the relationship and the continued relationship with myself is the hardest thing that I think I've dealt with.
Yeah. No, that's a great answer. Very deep answer, too. I appreciate that. And very honest, because I struggle with the same thing. And I was explaining it to people on other episodes. I'm like, I still struggle with the relationship with myself, like I can be compassionate with other people, but I don't give myself enough grace sometimes. So I guess like talking about like if somebody comes in and approaches you through sober life, or say like somebody out there listening right now that's struggling, wants to quit, what one piece of advice would you give to them?
Come and have a conversation with me. Just have a conversation with me. I don't know everything, but I've got a lot of experience under my belt of being able to help people. I'm very passionate. I really believe in myself. I believe in sober life. I believe in therapy. I believe in coaching. I believe in what we do. I believe in recovery, and I believe what's on the other side of where you are now is beautiful. And I think sometimes we just need somebody to put a hand out and have somebody walk us through that, man. Like I said earlier, I'm a guy, I'm in recovery. Take all the letters after my name away and all those fancy things. I'm a guy who's got 12 years clean, who's living his fucking dream, man. This is a dream for me, And I think if you want your own dream to come true, come and have a conversation with me. Like, I've helped a lot of people, and I'd love to be able to help you too.
Perfectly said. Perfectly said. You said some really nice quotes earlier, but is there like a quote that you kind of live by or stand by that you'd like to share?
Yeah, it's by an American psychiatrist. This might not be a verbatim what it is, but it's along the lines of, eventually we have to give up hoping for a better past.
I love that. That is amazing. No, I like that a lot. I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So how can my listeners, if they want to check out your pages on social media or check out what Sober Life is about, how can they find you and reach you?
Please, anyone that come and see what we're doing on our Instagram page, so at the Sober Life CEO. Sober Life CEO is on YouTube as well. We're on TikTok, we're on Facebook, we're all of the social medias. You'll see my face plastered all over it. I do talk some sense on there. Some of the stuff, I try and be a little bit funny with it and be light with it as well. But I manage all of our social medias as well, so I am more than happy for everybody just to drop us a message, come and have a conversation with me. I'd like to think I've come across as quite a personable guy.
You are.
I've done very well for myself in recovery, but I also don't forget where I've come from, and I'd love to be able to spread the message of recovery, if nothing else.
No, it's incredible how far you've made it, just being early on in this conversation and hearing about how deep you were into addiction, since such a young age, and just seeing where you're at now, successful, focused father. You should be very proud, and I'm so grateful that you got vulnerable and shared all the parts of your story. It really means a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Ryan, and congratulations on your 19 months, right?
Yep, 19 months yesterday.
That's such a bit like this. You know what? I don't mean this in a patronising way, but there's so much beauty ahead of you, man. You're a great guy, and I wish you all the best with your recovery as well, man. And if you ever want a conversation about recovery off the record, always welcome.
Always. Oh yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
Rock Bottom with Ryan. No bullshit, just recovery.